With the launch of Season 7 less than 3 weeks away, I wanted to share a unique take on a very classic build that I've been putting together. This build is going to get much stronger when we hit Season 7 with the introduction of a brand new unique that they're going to be adding in. I wanted to get this out because you can run it right now in the current season, test it out, see if it's something that you like before you commit to it when you get into Season 7. Ladies, gentlemen, Prime Evil Slayers, welcome back to another Diablo 4 video. I'm your host, Cliptus, and we are going to be covering the Ball Lightning Sorc. Now, this build is going to change when we hit Season 7. They'll be introducing a brand new unique focus. The one that we're going to be focusing on is right here, Okun's Catalyst. This is going to be replacing the current regular legendary offhand that I have right now. And when we get to the gear section, we'll talk about why. But what this is going to do, it's going to make the Ball Lightnings orbit you. If you've never seen a Ball Lightning build before, I'm going to show you what it looks like. It is crazy to see. There are lightning balls flying all over the place and they spin around you. It is really, really visually awesome. The crazy part about this, Ball Lightnings are going to orbit around you, creating a static field that damages all of the enemies within for up to 180 multiplicative damage of Ball Lightnings damage per active ball. And it grants you unhindered as long as the field is active. Now, what unhindered means, it means you can just run right through monsters. They don't stop you and you don't have to go around them. But if we can get up to 10 balls out, that's going to be 180% increase multiplicative damage per ball. When we get into the gameplay loop and you get to look at the balls lightning that are around, it is going to be a massive source of damage. As always, we're going to start with the skills. So at the top, you can pick whichever two you want to pick. We're only picking 2 just to unlock the next tier. Then we're going to go 3 points into Potent Warding. Casting a skill is going to grant you all resistances and maximum resistances. Depending on the rank, it's going to give you more. This is going to be based on whatever type of skill you cast. If you cast Fire, Lightning, and Ice all at the same time, which we're going to be doing, then you'll get resistances to all of those types. We're going to go 3 points into Elemental Dominance. Your core skills are going to deal additional damage when they're cast above 50 mana. Once you get up and running, you have full mana the entire time. We're going to go 3 points in Devastation. Your maximum mana is increased by up to 12. We're going to go 5 points into Flame Shield. Then we're going to go all the way up through Mystical Flame Shield. After Flame Shield ends, surrounding enemies are stunned for 3 seconds, and your next skill is granted a critical strike. You're also going to get Flame Shield has a 50% larger burn radius. This is going to be our burning damage. And what Flame Shield is going to do for you, Flame Shield, as I said, this will be your source of burning damage. We will need some buffs later on that are going to require burning, so this is going to give us that burning right there. This is going to make you invulnerable as well. Engulf yourself in a flame for 2.8 seconds, burning the surrounding enemies. While Flame Shield is active, you are immune. You can take no damage. The fun part about this is once you get the right gear and the right setup, this will be active 100% of the time, which means you will not die. It's really crazy to see. I run under armor cap and under resistance cap, and I don't die at all. They take no damage. So that comes with the gear and the right setup, but this is still a great ability to have. We're going to go 1 point into Teleport, all the way down through a Shimmering Teleport. After teleporting, you gain 30% damage reduction for 4 seconds. Teleport is also going to make you unstoppable here. So that's going to be a super important part when we get to the gear, because we're going to need to be unstoppable as much as we can. We're going to be going 3 points into Glass Cannon. You're going to deal additional damage, but you're also going to take additional damage. But remember, we're invulnerable all the time, so taking additional damage does not matter. We're going to go 1 point into Energy Focus so we can get Dampen Lair. We're going to put 3 points here. We're going to gain 8% damage reduction while you have a barrier active. Coming down, we're going to go 1 point into Ice Blades, all the way down through Summoning Ice Blades. 20% of Enhanced Ice Blades cooldown reduction is applied to your other skills. So Ice Blades, what this is going to do, conjures a pair of Ice Blades for 6 seconds that rapidly slash enemies, damaging them, and you have a 40% chance to make them vulnerable. With Enhanced Ice Blades cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds each time it hits a vulnerable enemy. We're going to be transferring some of that cooldown to all of our other skills when we're using Summoning Ice Blades. So this is going to actually help reduce the cooldown of all of our abilities. 1 point into Aligned Elements, then we're going to go 3 points into Protection. Using a cooldown grants you 40% of your maximum life as a barrier. This will just be an added layer if for some reason your Flame Shield does fall off. We're going to go 1 point into Lightning Spear, all the way down through Invoked Lightning Spear. Lightning Spear stuns enemies for 2 seconds when you critically hit. Enhanced Lightning Spear. Casting a Lightning Spear spawns additional Lightning Spears and increases their critical strike chance by 5. Lightning Spear is going to act as a really great crowd control source for us. Everything in the entire room is going to get stunned as soon as we come in. It gives us a chance to set up, get our positioning in, and then we pull all of the monsters to us. We'll talk about how we're going to do that later on. We're also going to go 3 points into Conjuration Mastery, gain a stacking bonus for each act of Conjuration, up to 30 stacks. Each stack is going to give us 4% multiplicative damage, 4% movement speed, and 8% multiplicative mana generation. That means that we will have 30 stacks up at all times with the amount of cooldown reduction that we have for this build. So we're going to have huge buffs from Conjuration Mastery here. Moving down, we're going to go into Inner Flame, and then that's going to unlock Devouring Blaze. We're going to put 3 points here. We're going to deal increased critical strike damage against burning enemies. We're getting our burning from our Flame Shield. If they're crowd controlled, the damage is going to be increased to 40%. So we're going to get big damage out of this here too. Now we're going to max out Ball Lightning, all 5 points here, and then we're going to come all the way down through Wizard's Ball Lightning. If an enemy is hit at least 4 times by a cast of Ball Lightning, a crackling energy is going to be formed. Enhanced Ball Lightning's attack rate is increased by your attack speed bonus up to 25%. That's how fast the Ball Lightning actually attacks that's orbiting around you. And Ball Lightning itself, with one of the aspects that we're going to be taking, or the unique focus that we're going to get next season, the Ball Lightning will orbit around you in a circle and continually do damage as it hits monsters. We're going to be going 3 points into Static Discharge. Critical strikes with shock skills have up to a 24% chance to form crackling energy. We're going to go 3 points into Elemental Synergies. Your Frost, Shock, and Pyromancy skills deal 4% increased damage for each skill you have equipped of their type. So depending on how many skills of each one, they're going to do 4% increased damage per. We're going to be going 3 points into Evocation. You gain 16% cooldown reduction. This is just flat cooldown reduction. This is amazing. Then we're going to be going 3 points into Coursing Currents. Hitting an enemy with a shock skill increases your critical strike chance by 4%. Resets upon getting a critical strike. So if your critical strike chance is not 100%, this will help you get to that 100%, and then will reset back to your normal critical strike chance after you get a critical hit. We're going to be going 3 points into Convulsion. Shock skills have up to a 28% chance to stun enemies for 3 seconds. I'm not lying when I say the entire room gets stunned as soon as you teleport in. We're going to be going 1 point into Unstable Currents, all the way down through Supreme Unstable Currents. While Unstable Currents is active, you pulse crackling energy for free at a 25% faster rate. Prime Unstable Currents. Unstable Currents increases your attack speed by 25% while active. Unstable Currents is up 100% of the time. I actually have to keep myself from clicking the button because you can't reactivate it while it's already active. Unstable Currents itself, lightning surges within you for 10 seconds whenever you cast a shock skill. Whenever you cast a shock skill, a random core, conjuration, or mastery shock skill is also unleashed. So this will just constantly cast random skills as well for more damage. Finally, we're going to be going into Enlightenment. Casting any skill grants 1 stack of Enlightenment, or grants 15 if your previous cast skill was a different element. We're going to be rotating through a bunch of different elements, so this will actually stack up to 100 very, very quickly. After gaining 100 stacks, you become Enlightened. You can no longer gain stacks, and you lose 10 stacks per second. While Enlightened, your bonus damage with Fire, Lightning, and Cold are equal to them combined, and you're going to gain 25% multiplicative damage, 45% mana regeneration, and 20% increase attack speed. When this goes off, the damage that you notice is very, very big. So that's going to be the skill tree. Now let's take a look at the Paragon Board. When you're building a Paragon Board this season, make sure that you follow along with a planner that doesn't go straight into 300. If you take your build and look at a planner that has 300 points already spent, and you just start filling out, you're going to run out of points. The best way to build a board this season is that you just get your glyphs, and then you run straight right to the next legendary node, and then the next glyph. You do that through the entire board. You go to every single legendary node and every single glyph. At level 46, the glyphs are going to go to what is called a legendary now. So they start off as a rare, and then they become a legendary node. Each glyph, when it becomes legendary, gains a multiplicative damage increase on it. Now, when you first hit level 46 with it, it is, let's just say, 5%. When you get to 100 on that glyph, you have doubled the bonus. So taking those glyphs as high as you can is a huge source of damage. So don't underplay how much damage it's going to get from leveling up your glyphs. In the starter board, we're going to be running Exploit. Dealing damage to a vulnerable enemy increases your damage by 1% for 6 seconds, up to 10%. That's a multiplicative. And for the legendary node, we're going to get vulnerable damage as a multiplicative as well. In the next board, we're going to be running a Ceaseless Conduit. Crackling Energy has a 25% chance to not be consumed as a charge when triggered. Crackling Energy's damage is increased by 4% per 20 intelligence you have, up to 120%. So we have now increased the Crackling Energy damage by 120% multiplicative. This is just going to be a little bit of extra damage as we move around the map and as we move around the groups. We're also going to be taking Destruction here. Critical Strikes increases all damage the enemy takes from you by up to 12%. So we're going to get 12% increased multiplicative damage here. Critical Strike damage is also going to be a multiplier from this glyph. We're going to be going into Fundamental Release next. Each time you apply Vulnerable, Burning, or Critically Strike an enemy, they take 10% increased damage from you up to 30%. Anytime that we apply any of those, we'll be increasing our damage done to enemies. Inside of that board, we're going to be running Charged. Picking up Crackling Energy grants you 5% increased damage up to 15%. This is part of the reason why picking up Crackling Energy is going to be so important. The Crackling Energy will do damage and is also going to give us increased multiplicative damage to all of our damage. As a legendary bonus, we're going to be getting multiplicative increased damage to lightning. In the next board, we're going to be running Frigid Fate. You're going to deal bonus damage to vulnerable enemies equal to 20% of your total bonus damage with cold, maximum of 60%. We have enough to give us 60% as a total here. Inside of this board, we're going to be running Adept. Mastery skills have a 20% increased area. Ball Lightning is considered a mastery skill, so this is just going to make our Ball Lightnings a little bit bigger. We're also going to get a multiplicative increased damage to our mastery skills. In the final board, we're going to be running Elemental Summoner. Your conjuration skills have a 10% reduced cooldown or mana cost. They also deal bonus damage equal to 10% of the total amount of your bonus damage with fire, lightning, and cold up to 60%, and we're currently hitting that bonus at max. Inside of the board, we're going to be running Control. You're going to deal 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies, or instead, 20% increased multiplicative damage to stunned or frozen. The entire room is going to be stunned, so we're going to be dealing that 20% increased multiplicative damage most of the time. We're also going to get a multiplier to crowd-controlled enemies. So stun is considered crowd control, so we're going to get another multiplier there. So that's the Paragon board. Let's take a look at the gear. Now, this build in its current form that I'm running right now does use a bunch of Mythic uniques. If you wanted to replace them, you absolutely can. It just will not hit as hard. This build in its current form is definitely not a pit pusher, so don't spec into this expecting to go very, very high into the pit. I've currently cleared through 75, and there is some tweaks that I can do that I think I can get a little bit higher. I'm hoping to see a huge increase in damage when we do get into the next season, when we add the witch powers in, and this brand new unique. We're going to start with the helmet. For the helmet, we're going to be running the Harlequin's Crest. We're going to be using this for the cooldown. We want to be running this close to cap on cooldown, and I'll show you why when we get into the gameplay loop of this video. For the chest piece, we're going to be running the Shroud of False Death. Now, this right here is probably one of the strongest mythics in the game, and I have said this from the start. The reason is because it gives you +1 to all of your passives. Now, if we go back into our skills and we look at this tree here, every single one of these blue highlighted ones is everything that is currently active because we have the Shroud of False Death. All of these extra nodes that we took for increased damage have now gained 1 additional. We would not have had all of that extra damage without running the Shroud of False Death. So this is giving us a massive increase to damage, survivability, all of it. It is incredibly strong. If you do not have this chest piece, the Raiment of the Infinite is actually a really great substitute for it. You're just going to have to take a little bit of a damage loss, but this actually is a very fun chess piece to play with, so I do highly suggest with this build, at least give this a shot. For the gloves, we're going to be running the Fist of Fate. This is going to give you a really, really big increase to your damage. It is random, but you will notice it, I promise. You want to actually be looking for attack speed and critical strike chance here. The lucky hit chance doesn't matter as much for this build. But follow along with the planner. It's going to be in the description of this video. It'll show you where the most important GAs are going to be and also where to put your masterworking crits. Mine are not in the place that they should be. Mine is still a work in progress, so follow along so you can get your build set up better than mine. For the pants, we're going to be running Tibolt's Will. This is where the Unstoppable from Teleport is going to be coming into play. We also get Unstoppable from using a Flame Shield. Every time that we become unstoppable, we're going to get 20% increased damage. We also are going to restore 50 of our primary resource. So every time that we become unstoppable, if you use something while you're unstoppable that normally would make you unstoppable, it doesn't count. But because we're going to have so much cooldown reduction on this build, you really don't have to worry about your timing whatsoever. Spam your keys. This is a very spammy build. For the boots, we're going to be running Flicker Step. The reason that we're running a Flicker Step, the attacks reduce evades cooldown is going to be 1.5 seconds. With the Flicker Step, we actually gain an additional second. When we attack anything, our evade is basically instantly cooled down. Evade is going to be a source of teleport for us, not an evade. We'll cover that in a little bit, but it's going to make it so that we can teleport almost infinitely. For the weapon, this is going to be our very first legendary here. This one, we're going to be running Accelerating on. Critical strikes with a core skill are going to increase your attack speed. We want to have high attack speed so that we can get our ball lightning out as fast as we possibly can. For the affixes, you're going to be running Intelligence, Max Life, Vulnerable Damage, or Critical Strike damage. And then for your tempers, you're going to be running Chance to cast ball lightning twice, and then Critical Strike damage here. For the focus, this is essential to this build. Gravitational makes it so that the ball lightning will orbit around you. It's going to give it additional damage. This will cap your ball lightnings out at 10. But every single time over 10 that you cast more, this is why attack speed is so important. You're going to get 10% increased damage on the existing ones that are already out there. For the affixes, for the focus, make sure you check along with the planner. It's going to be a little bit different than what I have on the screen because I haven't found the ones that I wanted to get yet. But the tempers, you're going to be running Chance to cast ball lightning twice, and then you're going to be running Critical Strike damage. For the first ring, we're going to be running the Ring of Starless Sky. Spending your primary resources reduces your resource cost of your skills and increases your damage by up to 50%. We're going to get 50% increased multiplicative damage, and now our skills are going to cost half as much. So instead of costing 50, it's going to cost 25 for us to cast, which is a good and a bad thing. But we'll get to that in just a second. For the next ring, we're going to be running Tal Rajas. You can get this ring by going to Varshan and killing Varshan a couple times. It drops very, very often, so you should be able to find yourself a pretty decent one there. Casting a Pyromancy, Shock, or Frost skill increases your damage by up to 25% for 8 seconds, stacking once per element. Casting again refreshes the bonus. So every time that we cast a Fire, Lightning, or Frost skill, we're going to get up to 25% increased damage for a total of 75% as long as we cast them once within 8 seconds. We're going to be doing that. Now, here is the very unique part about this build that I have been messing around with, and if you guys find something that works a little bit better, let me know in the comments because I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are for this. I am actually making probably one of the very first and only overpower builds for a Sorc. We're going to be running the Banished Lord's Talisman. Now, I did test this a lot. This is my testing amulet here. We tested a whole bunch of different aspects to see if we could make it do more damage than when I had the Banished Lords up. With the Banished Lord's Talisman, I've seen upwards of 100 million critical strike hits. It really does do a lot when it overpowers. And the fun part about the overpower is that as the ball lightning orbits you, once it overpowers, every single hit with that particular ball is always going to be an overpower. So it continuously overpowers as it spins around you. Without this on, and when I was not overpowering, my crits only went up to about 15 to 20 million. So I saw some huge spikes. Now, the problem is that you have to spend 275 resources. Now, that's not the only way that you can overpower, but that is going to be the biggest source of overpower damage because you're going to get an additional 60% increased multiplicative damage with these specific overpowers from the Banished Lord's Talisman. Now, there are a lot of ways to scale up overpower, which is why it's been so heavily used. We'll talk about some of those when we get into the gameplay loop, because we're actually going to be running mercenaries that are going to help this damage here. If you do not have the expansion pack and you don't have access to the mercenaries, in the next season, we're going to be getting ways that we can fortify ourselves. That is going to be a huge part of this build. So don't worry, in the next season, even if you don't have the expansion pack, this build will still work just like this right here. So let's go over the gems, the runes, the enchantments, and the mercenaries so you guys can see what we're running here. Now, remember, we're going to be invulnerable 100% of the time. So you can pick and choose where you want to put your skulls or where you want to put your diamonds. This is what it currently looks like. As we cast skills, we gain more resistances, so those resistances will go up. The armor is a little undercapped. You can either leave that as it is, or you can run incense, and that will give you more, or you can put more skulls in. It depends on how you want to run the build. For the runes, we're going to be running Yol Om. This is going to give you the Barbarian's Warcry, increasing your damage by 15%. This is going to be done by casting a skill with a cooldown. We cast skills with cooldowns very, very quickly. All you need to do is cast it 12 times, so it tells you on the tooltip right there. Inside of your armor for your chest piece, we actually want to be running Topaz. I don't have it in here at the moment because I was swapping it around from different characters, so this is actually the wrong one here. So put your Topaz in to give you additional intellect here. For the other set of runes, we're going to be running Tam Cry. Invoke the Spiritborn's Vortex. This is how we pull all of the monsters in. Ball lightning doesn't fill the whole room because they orbit around you, so now we have a source of pulling to you. If you don't run Raiment of the Infinite, which has a pull inherently in it, you can run this and make your life a lot easier. I promise you, this is going to be a great quality of life. If you are running the Raiment of Infinite, you can put maximum life in here because maximum life will help increase your damage. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit when we get into the gameplay loop and how to scale up your damage a little bit more. If you are not running the expansion pack, all you want to do here is just like the chess piece, you're going to be putting Topaz in for additional intellect. Inside of the weapons, you're going to put emeralds in for additional critical strike damage here. For your enchantments, what we're going to be running for the enchantments here, we're going to be running Ice Blade's enchantment. Why we're using this? Every 40 seconds in cooldowns you spend, you spawn an Ice Blade on a random enemy. What that means, if you look here, this has a 6.2 second cooldown. When we use this, we have spent 6.24 seconds of cooldown. Once we hit 40, we're going to be spawning an additional Ice Blade on a random enemy. We are going to spam our keys so quickly that this comes up all the time. You have a ton of Ice Blades up. Then we're going to be running Teleport Enchantment. The reason that we're going to be running this replaces your evade with a teleport. It gives it a 4.6 second cooldown. However, we're going to be running our boots that are going to give us a 2.5 second cooldown every single time that we attack. 2 attacks, and we attack very quickly, you have an evade back up. So those are your enchantments. Let's take a look at the Mercenary here. For the Mercenary, we're going to be running Rahir. The reason that we're going to be running Rahir is that we're going to be getting Fortify. Now, why Fortify is important? Fortify is actually additional damage for Overpower. If you look at the tooltip right around Overpower damage here, further increased at the moment of impact based on your maximum life and Fortify amount. This is why Barbarians have been running Fortify and Max Life for all of their Overpower builds so often, and why this season, when Overpower hit the Spiritborn, running Fortify from Rahir was so important to all of the builds. It's the exact same principle for this here. So with Rahir, the shield charge is going to give us additional Fortify, which we would never actually get on a Sorc. Now, in the next season, with the Witch Powers, one of the Witch Powers will actually grant you Fortify, so you can still run the Overpower build in that season, if this is something that you wanted to try out. This is also going to give us additional damage reduction here, and then we're going to get increased multiplicative damage whenever Rahir taunts. As our opportunity, we're also going to be running Variana. We're going to be getting 10% increased attack speed every single time that Bloodlust is used. Bloodlust will just be used on cooldown by putting Ball Lightning here. So that's the build. Now remember, when we went over overpowered damage, we want maximum life and Fortify. When you're going to be putting your elixirs on, you actually want to put on your Fortitude. This is going to give us additional life. And then really importantly, we're going to be running your Redamine Buzz. This gives us more life. We now have 18,000 life as a Sorc. This is going to make you do a lot more damage. So for the gameplay loop, I am not lying to you, it is just spam. You just spam all your keys as fast as you can. You're going to be using Teleport, and you're also going to be using your Evade, because you want to pick up the Crackling energy as you move around a little bit. But you want to spam all of your keys because we get buffs from using as many cooldowns as we can, more Ice Blades, and then we get also additional damage as we go. So I'll show you exactly what it looks like, and then you can see the visual effect from all of the Ball Lightning here. But you're going to start by evading in, and then you just start casting. You hold down that Ball Lightning. Now you see our mana gets a little low at first, but then once everything starts to come up and we get all of our cooldowns up, you get a ton of mana regeneration. So it looks like it's going to start a little slow, but then it really, really ramps up. So this is it. If you watch the cooldowns on the bottom, they come up so fast that we're just spamming as many skills as we can. The visual effect on Ball Lightning is amazing. It looks just like this here. Each of those balls is doing damage. The more that we have up is giving us additional damage on top of it. This is the Crackling energy on the ground here. That's doing damage itself. So it is a super fun build. It is very, very fast. It's very, very tanky. I'm very excited to see what it does in the next season. If you do try out this build, let me know in the comments what you think about it. I'm live every night. Stop by, say hi, theorycraft with me. Catch you on the clip side.